Representing students and the student body's interest when it comes to our student fees. Thank you for taking initiative when it comes to meeting with your fee administrators on those administrative fee committee meetings. Thank you for dressing up today. You all look great as well. And I hope you've enjoyed dinner. Thank you to Blue Light Media for being here to stream our event live. So this is going to be recorded and live streamed as well. We have several Student Fee Board members joining us through Zoom. I'll briefly explain a little bit of how the meeting will run. So we're going to use parliamentary procedure here. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask and participate. Don't let motions and seconds be intimidating at all. Your voice is important and we want you to be heard. With participating through Zoom, they're going to type in the chat if they have a comment, and Sammy will speak for them. Also, if you look at our agenda, so we'll hear from Daniel Lawrence on the ARC fee presentation. Following that, we'll all have a chance to ask clarifying questions to Daniel. Along with this, I would preface this whole meeting in that this is an informative meeting. None of our decisions here will be final. We will take a straw poll at the end, which we'll talk a little bit more about the reasoning for that when that comes. But make sure that you ask all your questions to Daniel following his presentation, but as well, I would encourage you to reach out to him after if you have any questions that you either aren't able to ask or that you think of throughout the week. And as well, we will email his presentation out to all of you following the meeting. Yeah, I think we're good to go here. We'll turn the time over to Daniel.
Thank you. This live? Yeah. Cool. Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Lucas, and thank you all for having me here today. It is my pleasure to come represent Campus Recreation. My name is Daniel Lawrence. I'm the Director of Campus Recreation. I've been at Utah State for just over 5 years. My 5-year anniversary was January 4th. And I've been here, came to Utah State as the Associate Director of Programs and Assessment, and then I've been serving as your Director of Campus Recreation for the last year and a half, since July 1, 2019. So I want to come to you today and speak about the ARC fee. The ARC is a phenomenal place that was student initiative, student organized, student approved. Back in 2009, under the student body president, Tyler Tolson, with the assistance and support of many upper administrators, including Dr. James Morales here, helped bring the ARC to fruition. So it is my goal to continue to operate the Aggie Recreation Center and provide an amazing facility for you all as the students, but also as a recruitment tool and a retention tool for many years to come. So first and foremost, I want to talk about why recreation is important. Many of you all know, and back in 2009, whenever they had these conversations, campus recreation became a official department at Utah State University in 1989. So 1989 was when the campus recreation became the official department here at Utah State University. We went all the way until 2015, until we had a legitimate recreation facility for the students to enjoy here at Utah State. But with the importance of the Aggie Recreation Center and the importance of your academics as a whole, there's been many research that's been done of the importance of students participating in collegiate recreational sports. Some of that research is found here, that campus rec participants are more likely to report higher GPAs. I think you all want higher GPAs and have that 4.0, striving for that. Rec participants report higher levels of physical health and quality of life compared to non-participants. Recreation participation provides an opportunity for students to develop relationships and individuals from different cultures, and as well as recreation participation enhances students' sense of belonging. That's what I want to hit home on, is the belonging. The Aggie Recreation Center is yours. I want to make sure we do everything we can to have the longevity of that facility while you're here and for many, many decades to come. So, how we got to this presentation today. Like I said, I got here in January of 2015. As we were building the Aggie Recreation Center, their conversations were had, and along with the Aggie Recreation Center bond. The bond is the mortgage payment, just like the house your parents grew up in, your parents owned, things like that. The monthly payment, or in this case, the annual payment. Along with that, we took $2015 figures to come up with the operation and maintenance of the Aggie Recreation Center. So that's how we came to the sense of a $75 facility fee, to pay that bond and to also to do the operation and maintenance of the facility. Once we got to 2015, typically when it comes to a new bond payment, at an institution like Utah State, they wait until every single subcontractor that has their hand in building the Aggie Recreation Center or building facilities, we wait till they are fully paid until we lock in the bond. Well, this process took until 2017 until we officially locked in the Aggie Rec Center, the bonds, the Aggie Recreation Center. So what that did, we had another 1.5 to 2 years of increased cost. So when we officially locked in the Aggie Recreation Center bond, the bond monthly annual payment went up. So on the original proposed budget with the bond payment and the fee, basically lowered the operation and maintenance of that. Since the Aggie Recreation Center opened, we've been operating on a $735,000 budget for the operation and maintenance with that. Before we go on to that, more information with that, I wanted to share, this is our mission. Campus recreation provides opportunities for personal growth and play, wellness, and adventure. Our vision is we're committed to the play, wellness, adventure, community, and development, and then also our commitment to inclusion there. Again, we are a very transparent department. We are inclusive and inviting department. We want all students here at Utah State to come visit the Aggie Recreation Center. This is just 4 of the facilities here that we have within campus recreation. We have the field house, which, by the way, is back open, so please visit the field house, but also has a brand new $1 million field house floor that the state of Utah provided the funds for, that Utah State or the students didn't have to pay for. So there's a brand new floor on the main floor and on the second floor mezzanine, so go check that out. So it's brand new, opened just yesterday, brand new floor. We have the Hyper Building, Aggie Legacy Fields, and for those who don't know, we have the Challenge course under Campus Recreation now, and this spring semester we'll be opening up a brand new rec field on the northeast side of campus where the old trailer park used to be. It's going to be a new grass field. The facility is under construction for storage and restrooms, but that will be open this upcoming spring semester later on whenever the winter thaw goes through. But I want to talk about the Aggie Rec Center and some more FYI, some information for you all. We typically average 335,000 student visits per year. This is obviously pre-COVID, but we average 330,000 plus visits per year. This first part of the fiscal year of July 1 to December 31 this year, we only saw 103,000 students come visit the Aggie Recreation Center. So our visitations are low. Obviously, we're in the COVID pandemic and people have their reasons why they choose not to come. But we average over 335,000 visits per year normally. I was talking to Cooper over here, and he brought up that you all discussed a number of you all discussed guest passes over the years, or last year or two. I want to come back and say that we are averaging over 5,500 guest passes per year That's students bringing their family members, bringing their brother, sister, mother, father, or their friend from another institution to come participate in and visit the Aggie Recreation Center. So those are the numbers that you all approve, or those are the services that you all approve to be able to continue to recruit and retain students here to Utah State. So those are a little bit of numbers for the Aggie Recreation Center with that. So here's the dollars and cents. This is fiscal year 2019 and 2020, the full year. So we had a grand total of $2,698,882. That was the student fees that came in off the $75 per student. Again, that goes to the bond and the operation and maintenance. The bond and the operation and maintenance budget last year totaled $2,897,287. So that's a deficit of $198,000 that we had to come up with from other funds to be able to continue to operate the Aggie Recreation Center wholly. Again, this goes back to locking in the bond in 2017. Costs went up, the utilities were up, and we were funded $735,000 annually for operation and maintenance. Again, so if you take that, subtract that, we technically, from the university, when they transfer the funds over from the bond of the $75 each of you all pay for the fee, transfer to the index for operation and maintenance, we technically only get roughly $535,000. And we still operate on a $735,000 budget. So that $200,000 difference. So doing simple math, we took our deficit and we divided that by the student enrollment. Student enrollment estimated of $36,000 because the Aggie Recreation Center is solely student fee funded. So we don't get any state funds, we don't have any E&G funds, it's solely funded by you all. So we take the average of 36,000, again, that's an estimated of 17,000 in the fall, 17,000 students in the fall, 17,000 in the spring, and an estimated 2,000 or so in the summer, during the summer months. So that broke down to $5.51 per person. So as I was talking with some other senators here and so forth, we were thinking, well, that just makes the Aggie Recreation Center O&M operation maintenance budget whole. We still have continued utility increases. We still have continued maintenance issues that continue to go on. And there's a lot of line items that I don't have any control over, and those will come up on the next slide here. So what we decided to add an additional dollar to go up to $6.50 to be able to provide an additional roughly $35,000 for continued annual increases of utilities. But also, whenever the utilities are down or we don't have a major year with major maintenance issues, we continue to roll those funds over for future years. So whenever we have to replace the Aggie Rec Center's roof, or we have a HVAC, air conditioner handler go out, or a heat goes out, I'm not here 3, 4, 10 years down the road asking for another student fee increase. So we're projecting years ahead to be able to sustain the operation and maintenance of the Aggie Recreation Center and not be having to continue to come ask for student fee increases. We want to be transparent. We want to make sure we're doing due diligence with the funds that you all entrust in us. So this is a snippet, and you all have this in front of you as well. I broke it up because I didn't know how big my projector was going to be today. But this is a portion of the Aggie Recreation Center budget. This is the personnel expenses. With opening a facility or having a facility, we have student staff who have to operate that. We have custodial staff that has to provide that maintenance and so forth. So this is the personnel services here that keeps the Aggie Recreation Center open from 6 a.m. to 11 o'clock each day. And we do have custodial in here who comes in at 10 o'clock at night to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. So there's someone in the Aggie Recreation Center 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making sure it stays as nice as it possibly can. This is the big one here. A lot of these numbers here, the peach color that you see, those are funds that I have no control over that continuously go up. Those are utilities. With a facility, we need to heat that facility. So we have steam. Steam is a utility that continues to go up. Electricity, we got to have the lights on for you all. And then chilled water. Whenever you're here in the springtime or the summertime, when it's 95 plus degrees, we got to keep that 105,000 square foot facility cooled for you all. So those are some samples there of the utility costs that are accrued from the institution that I have absolutely zero control over. As well as insurance continues to go up, telephones to operate, IT services, things like that, laundry and cleaning, which is through the roof right now because of COVID-19. But those are some expenses here. And to be able to do our best due diligence to keep us underneath $735,000 and even lower if possible, we have done everything we can to scrimp all the funds and all the pennies from other indexes that we can control to make sure we are doing our best due diligence with the $535,000 that we physically do get from the institution. So we're cutting things like we're prolonging the life of the fitness equipment. We're prolonging the life of how long we check out and rent out towels, equipment, things like that. We're doing everything we can to cut costs that where you all won't notice, but keep the budget down as much as we possibly can. And then, so this is a snippet of the maturation of the ARC bond. So the note here, this is the 30-year payment plan for the Aggie Recreation Center. The last payment for the Aggie Recreation Center won't come till 2044. Where will you be in 2044? No one knows. But the last payment, that building will be paid off in 2044. If you look at the top line there, again, this is the one of the last years that I've received from Business Finance. It shows December 2019, we make a $1.4 million payment to our ARC bond. Then in May, we make another payment for $741,000 to accumulate just over $2.1 million. The ARC bond is over $2.1 million each year. Then they add in the $735,000, which they give us, but we physically don't have that money in hand, for a grand total of 2019-2020 fiscal year, $2,897,287. Then you look over to the student fee revenue received. This is where you see in the fall semester we received $1.2 million. Spring we received just over $1.2 million. And in the summer we received $194,000. So that particular year, prior term, we rolled over a negative balance of $1196 because I was interim director July 1, 2019. Day 4 on the job, I get a phone call and email from Business Finance. Daniel, your ARC O&M budget is a negative $425,000 in the hole. That's day 4 being the director, and I had no clue about that. It's like, how do you plan on paying that off in the next 30 days? Here we go. So we looked at everything we had. As you can see on here, where we are currently, the second line actually how it shows the current year we're in. The fall semester, we received $1.2 million. The spring, as of December 7th, when I received these numbers from Business Finance, we're only at $997,000 there because students were still registering, so that number's gone up. And then we're only partially through for the summer. So currently, right now, we're sitting today. We're sitting at a negative $533,000 today. That number will continue to go up when we get more student fees and things like that. But that was just at a glance on December 7th. But it gives you an idea that we're paying $2.1 million per year. But yeah, like I said, that 5th day on the job, I had to come up with $425,000 to get us out of the deficit. And the students couldn't feel it, couldn't see it. So, this is the great picture here. So, when the Aggie Recreation Center opened in 2015, there was $1.5 million put in a quasi-account for earmarked to replace the Aggie Legacy Fields. The Aggie Legacy Fields has a warranty of 8 years. We are now in year 9. Meaning, when they installed the Aggie Legacy Field in 2012, they put in AstroTurf at 2¼ inches thick, about yay big. Students are now playing on the Aggie Legacy Field 3/4 of an inch. We are almost playing on the concrete underneath the legacy field. So I am doing my best, and so that $1.5 million that's earmarked to replace the legacy field, that's where we pulled the $425,000 from. So we didn't want the students to see that, or feel it, or ask for a student fee increase a year and a half ago. So now the quasi account is sitting just over $1.1 million still for the legacy fields. If we don't do anything with our O&M budget and correct that wrong, I'm going to have to pull more money out of that quasi account, taking away funds that's going to be replaced in the legacy fields. And that will continue on until that money is all gone. And then I have to go to the institution, USU, and take an internal loan out from the institution to continue to operate and or replace the legacy fields at a 4% interest rate. So that's what I'm up against to make sure we're doing the best we can to give you all the best engaging experience here at Utah State, but also do the best to be good stewards of your funds. So those are the challenges that we're up against, and we're actually ready to roll. I'm working with Dr. Morales, we're going to work with Central Administration and others. This is a quote to replace the legacy field right now, as early as start as this upcoming May. That's a quote right now at $933,000. So I've been working with Sammy and a number of others in here as well. I have samples in my office of the legacy field. If you want to come feel the different samples of grass we can put in, I have fake grass grown in my office. But this is a sample of what it's going to take to replace the legacy fields. So again, these funds, even though they are separate, they're all intertwined together in providing your all's engaging, exceptional experience and not doing our best to not continue to ask for a student fee increase. And with that, that's my story. That's how we got to where we are here. I'm going to open the floor up for questions.
I'll just explain really quick too. So with questions, Dexton will run the mic to you. Just raise your hand. If we get a list or a line for questions, I guess, just grab my attention. I'll make a speakers list. And yeah, so Olivia, did you have a question?
You want this one? Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay, I just have two quick questions. So based off of the student enrollment, was that based off of previous years or this past year with COVID? Because I know the enrollment had been down, correct?
The 36,000 number
Yeah.
here. So that is a magic number that the institution projects many years out.
Okay.
So whenever I budget, figure out how we're going to budget allocate our funds, or anticipate our campus recreation fee, which is a separate fee, we average that off at 36,000 students. So what I do is I take the campus rec fee of that right now it's $37.36, I think, and I times that by 36,000. That's my projected annual budget for campus recreation to provide intramurals and things like that. So that's the projected number that the university gives us.
Okay, and then I have another question real quick. So if enrollment is down, would you guys, and we didn't meet this number, if this was passed, would you guys need to ask for another increase next year, perhaps?
If the enrollment, that's the double-edged sword of being only student fee funded. To answer your question, no. I will not be back in here next year asking for another student fee increase. My role or my purpose here today is to right the wrong we have right now and continue to think outside the box and innovatively to make sure we're not doing this again 3, 4, 10 years down the road. So no, that's the double-edged sword. As enrollment goes down, our budget goes down. That's where we look at cutting various programs, services, or things like that, again, with your all's knowledge and support and understanding. But we would do everything we can to continue to operate under the budget that we have. And that's just a double-edged sword of being solely student fee funded.
All right, hey, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Trevor. I'm very supportive of increasing the fee, just first off, I'd say. I just have a question, and maybe I missed this or maybe just misunderstood this, but we're asking for that additional 99 cents for the $35,000 increase to kind of adjust for any inflation that's going to be caused to the prices. Is that going to be enough where we're not going to have to ask, later on down the road? I don't know if, like, with everything that's going on with the different students and COVID and stuff like that, is that where did that projection come from of the additional 99 cents?
To be honest with you, that was a conversation I think Sammy, Dr. Miles, and I had. We don't want to go and gouge the students. That $35,000, honestly, it puts us above making whole. As we do have continued cost increase, there are those years that we do have down years of other expenses from the university and things like that. So I'm projecting an average over the next 15 plus years of what that could look like. Again, that's adjusting various different budgets and different line items that we don't have to continue to fund because we've been operating efficiently for so long. We don't have to replace things and do various different things like that. So again, we felt comfortable. Again, to cap it at $6.50, because when we do have a good year, we will be able to roll that over, and that will continue to accumulate. So hypothetically, we're not cutting into that $35,000 for a handful of years, and then we have a cushion of $100,000+ because whenever we do an HVAC replacement or a roof replacement 15, 20 years from now, things like that, those are going to be your $1 million plus purchases types of things.
Thank you for that. And just a side question with that, I believe it was the quasi-fund said that's the $1.5 million that was given for the legacy fields?
Initially, yes.
Yeah, and so does that need to be replaced? Because it was showing there was, I believe, $990,000.
No, where'd it go? No, to replace the legacy field right now, that price right there, this will be the exact same field the New England Patriots play on, the Seattle Seahawks play on. The exact same field. We can fluctuate that number as needed, but no, we are not looking to replace the full $125,000 we had to use because, again, this is under the 1.1 we have right now, so we're not looking to replenish that full $125,000.
Okay, and then for later on down the road in 10 years when we need to replace the legacy fields again, what do we do with the budget at that point? Do we assess it to get a new budget?
Again, that continues on with the operation and maintenance of various different things, our overall budgets, changing, pulling funds from different line items and things like that. Because I'm thinking projecting 5-10 years down the road. I'm not operating just in 2021 right now. I'm visionarily thinking 5 to 10 years down the road, how do I not stand in this room right here doing this again? So that's my goal, and then that's what we're going to, my vision, and continue to quest to do that over the next handful of the 10 years to make sure we're not doing this again.
Okay, thank you.
So just a two-part question. The first being kind of just an elaboration on Olivia's question. That 99-cent cushion, could that be applied to, being a bit of a safety net, or could that be considered a bit of a safety net for lower enrollment rates as well?
It may have to be projected to do that for the next couple of years. Hopefully this COVID pandemic does end and we get back to our enrollment. Last fall semester, I think we were actually flat and with our enrollment, so students still came. I'm hearing from the registrar's office that this spring semester, our numbers are still very positive. Students don't like the online setting, but they're still working through that. So my understanding, the enrollment is still very positive right now. But yes, hypothetically, in the next couple of years, if we do have a decrease in enrollment, that additional 99 cents will help continue to keep us whole.
And I was just wondering if you could, you talked a bit about how the ARC is a solely, or if I understood correctly, it's a solely student-funded operation. And could you speak to the perks of that? What are the pros of being, for students, I guess, what how does that benefit us, it
Sure.
being a solely student-funded operation?
Well, it's solely student fee funded recreation, so it's for students by students. And you all students have approved different services to continue to enhance your experiences with the guest passes. Many of you all have brought and can bring your siblings in, can bring your parents in, or friends from high school or whatnot. So that's a service, but we're talking the ARC O&M, the ARC fee alone. There's a separate campus recreation fee that goes to help fund intramurals, club sports, fitness and wellness, outdoor programs, things like that. This one's solely the Aggie Recreation Center fee that provides you unlimited access to the Aggie Recreation Center of all the hours we're open, provides you all the access to all of the equipment and all the programs and services that we offer within overall campus recreation. So again, it's the ARC bond. The ARC fee goes towards obviously the bond payment, but provides unlimited access to each semester's current student fee paying students.
Everyone, if you could make sure that before you speak, you state your name so that we can get that on the minutes every time you speak.
Okay, I'm Haley. I'm a student at large. And you had said that if this doesn't get passed, then you're going to have to reconsider like different programs and stuff that the ARC puts on to like get their budget money and things like that. Do you have any ideas of what kind of programs you think would need to be cut or reduced?
Well, great question. And if this doesn't get passed, again, we still have that $1.1 million in the quasi account. We will continue to pull from that until that's depleted, and then we will then go to the university and take out that 4% loan each year to pay off to keep the facility open. If we look into cutting programs and services, we would have to look at staffing options. Again, right now it's very difficult because we need the student staff we have in additional positions to keep the facility open because of COVID-19 protocols. But it would look at cutting hours to the ARC. Right now, the Aggie Rec Center is one of the rec centers across the country that's open the longest, especially during the COVID pandemic, where I have colleagues and friends that are closing their doors at 9 o'clock at night. We're staying open 5 nights a week till 11 o'clock. We're extended hours on Saturdays and Sundays. But if we get to that point in the future, looking at cutting, again, prolonging the life of a lot of our equipment, making sure, and it might not look as nice as you all are accustomed to, but then potentially cutting student hours, students' positions, potentially having to cut facility operational hours where it's not as open and accessible to you all as much as it is now.
Do you have another question, Haley?
Oh, no, thank you.
All right, I'm Clark Rawson, also a student at large. Just two quick questions. So is there almost like a goal number that you want to get to with a 99-cent increase, like a certain cap that once you reach this number, then maybe we could lower that back down 99 cents? Or is it kind of a continual thing that will just keep going throughout the years?
Anticipate it would be the continual thing over the years because that one line item that I was told you about every year, for example, our utility cost goes up. We spend right now almost over $250,000 just on utilities alone, and I can't control. We can control that by, in the summertime, raising the AC, that way it's hotter in there. In the wintertime, lowering the heat, that way it's colder in there. We can control that way, but again, who wants to come to the facility and with those experiences? But no, the 99 cents, again, is to hopefully help continue to provide that fund of the off years when we have additional expenditures that we're anticipating, but then also prolonged expenses when we have to replace the roof or we have to replace the HVAC system, have to replace windows. Each of those windows you walk in the ARC, for example, is $7,000. We've had to replace 2 of those. $7,000 for a pane of glass. Those are the type of things that accidentally happen, but we have to pay for. So don't think we would, unless we have a miraculous turn of events or we have a wonderful donor that comes in and pays off the bond and puts their name on a facility or puts their name on a court or something like that or whatnot, I don't think we would look at lowering that back down because as everything else is going on, everything is increasing. Even the equipment we purchase continues to increase. So our budgets are not going down. So we're trying to get ahead of that and prolong the integrity of future purchases and future needs.
Okay, and then just the other question, so we had $1.1 million in the other fund, but it's gonna only be $930,000, so if this all gets approved, do you have plans with that other $170,000 to put it towards?
In that
bettering our-
quasi account, it is interest earning. So the plan is to leave it there and create a head start for 10 years down the road when we have to replace the legacy field again, or any other major expense for the department. So again, I'm thinking 5, 10 plus years down the road of how we can keep the student fees down, and if we ever do have an opportunity, decrease those student fees. But again, that whatever is left after to replace the legacy field, that will just give us a jump start for saving for future major purchases for the Department of Campus Recreation.
Hi, my name is Rachel Arner, and I just have a question about sorry, I have a hoarse voice. But I have a question about I want to say you said $55,000 that was coming in from guest passes. My assumption would be that money goes straight to the ARC because it's generated by the ARC itself.
5,500 guest passes, so 5,500 times 5. So whatever that is, it's not 55,000, it'd be 5,500 guest passes times 5.
Okay.
So, but yes, that funds do go to help offset the cost, purchase equipment, and things like that for the Aggie Rec Center.
Okay, yeah, so that was my question, is just if that money goes anywhere specific?
Yep, it goes right back into the Aggie Rec Center.
Thank you.
Couple questions. First one, Austin Fullerton, I'm the CAS senator. What other avenues, or are there any other avenues for finding funding? And have they been explored?
That's the challenging part with the Aggie Recreation Center and being student fee funded. It's taken many years for the students to approve like guest passes and things like that. One thing that we could potentially do to bring in additional revenue would be to be able to offer camps and conferences in the Aggie Rec Center. Currently, right now, we do not. And especially in the summertime, for example, whenever students go home and we're only averaging 400 to 600 students per day in the rec center, as opposed to the average of 3,500 to 4,500 students per day during the academic year. We could utilize some of the court space to bring in self-generated revenue through camps and conferences where they can come in and there are going to be youth basketball camps, youth volleyball camps, UDA cheer camp, if any of y'all were at the UDA cheer camp, or anything like that. Those are avenues I've been a part of other institutions that would help bring in self-generated revenue if we were able to get approval to be able to do that. So everything we do in the Aggie Recreation Center, we come to this board or a number of people on this board who bring student bodies at large to then hear our proposal and then approve it or not. So those types of things that are out there and that are accustomed to higher education campus recreation facilities, we just don't do that here because the students don't want to do that.
Okay, cool. And then the second question is, are the guest passes that we sell roughly 5,500 right a year? Is that per semester?
That's annually. per
Annually?
year. Yep.
And what are those per guest?
Per guest, yep.
And how much do those cost?
$5 per person.
$5?
Yep. And that
So my
gives you
question-
24 hours access.
Okay, yeah, so my question is, how come we're not a little bit closer, more of a competitive rate as compared to like, let's say Planet Fitness or some other gym type experience where it's $45 a month, let's say?
When you go to those gyms as well, we're talking two different things. Because again, students, we can't sell alumni memberships. We can't sell memberships to the community, to the recreation center. Again, because the student body in 2015 voted on that, so we don't allow alumni memberships either. That is another option we could do, is offer alumni memberships. I strongly discourage opening that up to any alumni because we have tens of thousands of alumni in Cache Valley. But if we look at something like a 1 year, once you graduate, you have 1 year alumni membership that you can purchase type of thing. But when we're talking guest passes, whenever you go to the gym down south, I can't think of the name, you said it.
Orange Theory,
Planet Fitness, those types of things. They have guest passes as well, and we are typically lower when it comes to those, where other people's guest passes are $7 to $10 per person per day.
Okay, so we do have a compatible rate at our
We do.
$5 compared to the guest passes?
For the
Okay.
one-day guest pass. But yeah, when it comes to offering a $45 per semester guest pass, that gets into the membership of selling to the community or alumni, which we're not doing that, and we don't want to, and the students don't want to do that right now.
Awesome. Thanks for the clarification.
Yep, you're welcome.
Hi, I'm Maria Catalano. I'm the NR senator, and I was just wondering, so you said that like conventional utilities are going to increase in the future, of course. I was just wondering if any of this, it looks like $40,000 is going towards investments in more renewable options that could be cheaper long-term and eventually decrease the price of the fee at the ARC?
Those things we can, and we can work with Blue Goes Green and various different committees and various different departments and folks on campus. One thing that the university has done that saves the entire institution, I don't even know how much, is if you ever look at the Aggie Recreation Center like right now, there's on top of the soccer field, there is a big circle of snow. There is I believe it's a 1 million gallon cold water storage tank underneath that, for example. And what that is for is the university thought proactively, well, we'll put that in and we will provide chilled water to campus during the daytime hours when the water rates are at the peak price. Then we will refill that tank at nighttime at off-peak rates. So that's one thing that the university did as well, and my understanding that's paid for itself multiple times over and over and again. We could look at, I know the university is looking to move towards solar. I know at the challenge course we're looking at putting solar panels on the side of the hill at the challenge course. We could look at solar panels on the roof of the recreation center. We can do those types of things. There will be upfront costs with that, but long-term efficiency, we do have that. But I also must say, the Aggie Recreation Center, when it opened in 2015, we were actually awarded LEED Gold. LEED Gold out of Platinum, we're the second highest. So the sustainable efforts that went into the Recreation Center in building it, but also the continued operation of that, we have sustainable efforts and efficiencies throughout the facility right now as well to be able to have earned that LEED Gold certification.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, seeing that we have no questions, we'll move on. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you all for your time, and like Lucas said earlier, my email is first.lastname@USU. My office is in the second floor of the ARC 218. I am here most days during the week working with the various construction projects we have going on, and I do have the opportunity to teach in the kinesiology health science department. So I am here most days. If you would like to set up a Zoom call or stop by the ARC and visit in person, happy to answer any further questions, but thank you for your time tonight.
Great. Can we give... All right, moving on to the information and technology fee decrease. I'd just like to give Cooper a chance to speak on this. So being the engineering senator, for the last 2 years, Cooper has been over the technology fee. And yeah, I'll let him provide a little bit more information here.
Yeah, just some information about the potential decrease that I hope we pass later in next week. The reason for the decrease is there was a decrease in the usage of the old main computer lab, and so because that is prime real estate at Utah State, they made a decision to cut back the amount of computers in that usage. And so with less computers in that lab space, that obviously relates to a lower usage of funds for that lab, with the associated costs in replacing those computers, as well as staffing and cleaning and total expenses. And so after evaluating the number of computers that would be removed from the old main computer labs, that would equate to around $1.60 decrease. And so instead of repurposing that $1.60 per student on average for a different use, we figured that potentially it would be better just to decrease at this time until we found an appropriate good use and that a worthwhile cause to use in addition to student technology. And so we felt at this time that was the best option going forward. So, any questions? I think it's, especially in academic senate and those student at larges, I've been able to talk about this extensively, but I know not everybody has been in those talks to maybe understand this fee decrease. So, any quick questions? Yeah.
This is Trevor, Athletics VP. Hi, Cooper. So basically, what do we have any idea? You said that right now we're going to plan on decreasing the fee until we find, a way to use that budget. Is there any plans of what they've thought of possibly using that money towards, or what it would go towards?
Yes. Another big, the biggest expenses for the computer technology fee are the actual lab spaces, the hardware, such as the computers, and the costs associated to replacing them and running them. But there's other uses for the student technology fee, such as the things like the Adobe contract and different programs that students use on campus. And so we did a few asking around as far as to what students might be interested in adding. And at this time, we didn't feel like there was an appropriate support to add a new service. And so until we hear essentially enough feedback and strong enough desire to add a new service, such as maybe introducing like more VR headsets, that's another thing that is added to the library, until we see, I think, any new ideas, we were open to those, but at this time we don't have any. So in the meantime, why not, instead of just holding on to that money, if in a year from now the next student technology fee chair, so the next engineering senator feels like they find some technology use that they feel students would benefit from, then the student fee could raise back up. But at this time where we don't have a use, we felt like the best case would be to give that savings to students.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's Haley, a student at large again. Would you be able to relocate the computers that are already there to ones that get used often, like in the library or anything like that?
Potentially, the computers that would be used in the library and the several other spaces on campus, like the business building and the engineering buildings and other lab spaces on campus, it could potentially, but I believe the computers that were being used in Old Main are going to be sold, and so the part of the built into the student technology fee currently, there is funding allocated to replace the current computers in the library to keep them up to date. And so by the time that those computers in the library or anywhere else like Old Main or like I said, those other buildings in which there are computers, when those are out of date, the computers that would have been in Old Main would also be out of date and replaced anyway.
This isn't a question, Cooper. So I just think I would just add to that. So I've worked for the information technology computer labs for the last 2 years, and there's always kind of an ebb and flow of what computers are where and in what labs. It's always kind of in flux. So I think it's very likely that some of those computers were relocated. And they're always kind of making sales there and stuff. Okay, so Porter had a question, but I'm just going to, following Porter's question, encourage everyone, if you have questions on this fee decrease, reach out to Cooper after the meeting, or Gary Egbert is the fee administrator. And I would just second what Cooper said, that this is really a sign of our technology fee, and Gary being a good student or a good steward over student fees and running his student fee well, and in proposing this fee decrease. Okay, let's go with Porter.
Porter Kasdorf, Student Events VP. Just really quick, to confirm this, the time where it was noticed that these computers were not being used as much, has that been just this last semester or the last 2 semesters, or has it been pre-COVID kind of circumstances?
Great question, and thank you for asking that. And so, what are the motivations? Because the old main space in which the computers are such prime real estate, for lack of a better term. Old main decided that it would be better purposed, and so that is shown evident through the last decade, just decreased use in the old main lab. And so we see some increased usage in like the engineering labs and other labs on campus, and the one in the TSC is very heavily used. But where the old main lab was being year after year less utilized, we didn't push back per se when we saw that the space could be better utilized on campus. Oscar, VP Diaz, did you have a question? All right.
Thank you, Cooper, for fielding those questions. That was great. If you have further questions, I'd encourage you to reach out to Cooper or Gary Egbert. I also want to plug the student fee website that we have. For those joining us virtually, and if you are a student watching and you would like to give input, feel free to reach out to the members of Student Fee Board. The roster, including contact information, email addresses, is listed on the student fee website. That's on, if you Google USU student fees, it will come up. It's in the Utah State Student Affairs website. As we move into the discussion portion of the meeting, we're going to have 2 separate discussions. The first on the ARC fee presentation. I would ask that you preface your comment after you introduce yourself, say your name and whether you're a student at large or your title, to voice your support or opposition of the fee, and keep your comments concise and to the point and focused. So let's move into discussion on the ARC fee.
Okay, I'm Sammy Ahmed, student body president. So with the ARC fee, I support the increase because for the last 5 years or 6 years, however long the ARC has been going, essentially we've been going at a subsidy because we're not actually covering the cost at a break-even point. And that was done in order to keep a promise for students. When the first bond payments were projected, it was based off of a lower amount of number. And when the market increased 2 years after, that adjustment was never made. So the way I see it, it's important to keep promises to students, but I don't think we should keep a faulty promise if it doesn't make sense. And that's kind of where this issue was brought to me over the summer, and I've worked closely with Daniel, and it's something, at least personally, I see as easy to defend and explain. And having that building be a student-funded building, I think it makes sense for the increase to at least cover that cost. And that's kind of where my thoughts are. I don't think we should keep a faulty promise just because we promised it, even if it's not accurate.
Austin Flitton, the cast senator. I'm also in full support of the increase, but I am also very curious on what we could do to further utilize the space there in the ARC and other facilities to find other alternative sources for funding as well as the increase. That's all I have to say.
Brock Hardcastle, Business Senator. I am also in support. I have met with Daniel the last 2 years with regards to the ARC student fees and the student fees that are allocated towards it. I know that Daniel is very proud of the work that he puts in, and rightfully so, of how he is a excellent steward of those funds. And so knowing, I believe, and I want everyone to recognize that you can trust the words that he has said, because he has put a lot of effort into them. And yeah, full support.
My name is Rachel Arner, and I'm the PR and Marketing Director. And I have to say that I am a little hesitant to support the tuition increase, or not tuition increase, fee increase for the ARC, because I actually worked there for 3.5 years, and I have seen a lot, and I've been there through a lot of different transitions of roles and a lot of different people. And I personally believe that there are a lot of different places that we can pull funding from that are wasted through the ARC and the way they run things sometimes.
Porter Kasdorf, Student Events VP. I'd like to, I'm fully in support of the increase in the fee. I would like to implore the university to seek new ways to obtain more students on campus and increase the numbers of students in enrollment. Specifically from students of out of state, there's a large number of students that I know of that would love to come to Utah State via the alumni scholarship. I myself came on in 2015 with the 4 years where you were allowed the in-state tuition the whole time. I believe there's the scholarship's a bit different. It's not as enticing now for students who are out of state but alumni. I think there could be a large number of students that are brought on that would help pay for all different student fees, but as well for this one as well. There wouldn't be as much worry. There'd be less concern about, how many students we're going to have, and we would, be bringing in more students and having more Aggies. So.
I'm Jen Ha, the Student Advocate Vice President, and I'm also a little hesitant with the fee. I think we have other alternatives that we should look at first, such as hosting camps, youth camps, and other conferences and whatnot to gain money from that, and proposing that because I think students would be okay with hosting those instead of having a fee increase. And I also think Daniel mentioned that we were one of the longest open facilities, and I think we don't need to keep that title of longest open campus facility in the nation, and we could cut back on a couple of the hours to kind of allocate the funding elsewhere so that we don't have to increase the student fee as much.
Yeah, I just have a question for Director Arner. You kind of mentioned, I guess, a wasting of funds or from your experience in the ARC. Can you elaborate on that, what that is like, where you're seeing those deficiencies or faults?
Yeah, so I don't want to just throw a bunch of things out there, and I'd be happy to discuss with anyone who has questions further after this. But I think there are a lot of things that kind of go unnoticed with the facility. As like I said, I worked in the facilities department. But I think that there are a lot of things, there are extra staff that aren't needed that I've noticed. There are a lot of activities that go on at the ARC that I believe that aren't super necessary. And I also see a lot of like spending on different merchandise and things that aren't ever used. And so I think that there can be definitely look into those sort of things before making a decision like this.
Olivia Hodge, Chass Senator. I just want to say that I fully support this because I do understand where some of these hesitations are coming from other people. I do think that part of why the ARC is so successful and why so many students love it is because it is constantly updated and it is open later and it does have all these options for all different types of students, which is very enticing to them. And that's why it gets used so much and why students appreciate it. So I just want to say I'm in full support of it.
This is Trevor Wilkie, Athletics VP. I also am in support of this very strongly also, and to go off of what Senator Hodge said here, I think it's important to understand all these ways that we can also increase the budget for this. And I think that working together along with this fee increase, I think that we can be able to get enough money to support for causes that can go later on that come up, because with situations like this with the pandemic, obviously there's been a lot of hurt in the organization, and this is an organization that's completely funded by students. And I think that we need to remember that something like this could happen in a couple of years, and then what happens then at that point. So I think looking, like he said, in a 5-10 year radius here, without having a student increase, it'd be really good to continue to have this increase to this fee, because it is a service that a lot of students do use. And I think of the fees, of everything, that's probably one of the biggest ones. So if there can be a way that we can look into, I don't know if it's with spouse passes or if it's increasing, the pass for people to come in. There's lots of different options, but overall, I think for the long term, it's going to be very successful, and I fully support it.
Liz Drake, Education Senator. I'm inclined to say I'm in support of this fee increase, mostly because as an exercise science student, I'm really passionate about the way that recreation can change student lives and how it benefits them. And I would hate to see that this, an absence of, or I guess having a debt on this recreation center, if that would change how students are able to access it, or the frequency of that can really affect, I think it will have a chain reaction effect on student, their life and that kind of thing, I guess is what I'm getting at. I also think that if there are alternate ways for us to raise funding, I would say absolutely let's move forward with them, but I think it's more dangerous to continue to be in debt on this bond. And before I think we should move forward, and then hopefully we can reduce it in the future as we explore those other options and that kind of thing. And I think that would be a sweetener of a deal for students, I guess, if that makes sense. Just a little happy thing. So.
I'm Clark Rawson. I would say I'm in support of the $5.50 increase, but the additional 99 cents, I don't see a specific reason why we would need it. It says it's for maintenance, but there's already $45,000 set apart annually for maintenance. I think just having like an ominous account that continually grows each year kind of encourages unneeded spending, because then you're kind of looking for ways to spend the money. I think if there needs to be some kind of big purchase done with the roof, with something else, I would rather have it go through a lot of people, like a group of people like this, rather than one person deciding that whenever he wants.
My name is Oscar Diaz. I'm the Organizations and Diversity VP. I want to say I'm in support with this student fee increase, just because we would be delaying further increase in the future, given all the financial data that has been provided to us. It will also end up here further in the future. So.
Haley Darrow, student at large. I am having kind of like a split decision on this just because I don't think it's fair to put the responsibility of upholding a promise that they couldn't keep from the beginning on the students. So if they're promising all these long hours and all these new like improvements and things like that, I think that should have been talked about from the very beginning with the budget that they already had. And I understand that there's like inflation and things like that are going to come along over the years, but I think it's more important to work with what they have instead of promising bigger and better every time and just asking for more money when they can't fulfill those promises. I understand the importance of the ARC, but like Jen said, I think if it is choosing between putting this on the students and cutting back hours by like 2 or inviting organizations to the campus instead, I would much rather go down that route than having to put it on the shoulders of the entire student body. And especially when they like don't really know what the enrollment is going to be, they just have this like magic number when in reality it could change up and down. I just feel like there's a lot of unknown with it that I would rather avoid than have to deal with the consequences of what could happen potentially with it.
James Morales, the Vice President for Student Affairs. Wanted just a point of information regarding any budget amounts that might be built up over time to address, certain expenditures in the future. Big capital expenses, like repairing a roof or something like that. Those decisions are not made by one individual in campus recreation. That involves a whole lot of people, and not the least of which are committees with our facilities department, for example, here at the university. Because certain capital projects past a certain dollar amount cannot be actually carried out without all of the various people and levels that need to approve those kinds of projects. So there's a lot of, there are checks and balances on that. It wouldn't be any one individual in campus recreation. Daniel could not make that decision. In fact, I couldn't make that decision alone on certain, large ticket items. On top of that, the ARC and campus recreation, we established a group of students that we've referred to as the, I think, ARC Advisory Council or Board that makes decisions about how the ARC is used and some of the funding then that is also accumulated, how that's used. So there's a strong student voice in that process as well. But I just wanted to add that so you understood the process.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, student at large. I am mostly in favor of this as well. I'm a freshman, I'm in freshman housing, so I'm around a lot of these people. And I have only heard positive support of the ARC. We have multiple recreation places, and that's the only one I really hear about. I think of all the fees you could possibly increase, this one would have the least pushback because I don't think the average student would really mind paying an extra $5 to use the ARC that they love. I do, as a colleague down here mentioned, have some reservation about the 99-cent increase. At least from my perspective, as out of place it might feel, it's good to increase to get us out of that debt, but that kind of surplus extra, I feel like that would be better gained through kind of finding camps or conferences or finding other places to cut rather than just increasing the fee outright.
Eric Olson, Associate Vice President for Student Affairs. One thing I just want to point out, camps have been mentioned a number of times. A few things. Athletics really kind of has a monopoly on athletic camps on our campus, and so it would have to go through them, and the revenue goes to individual coaches. But also, if you ever participated in a camp in high school, you realize it lasts for 2 to 3 to 4 days. In our current, pre-COVID camps that use the field house or the hyper building, they tie up that building for 3 and 4 days from early in the morning till late at night. And so if the ARC were to start to host camps, that would prevent student use. And that's one of the things that we've really tried hard to do, is protect the ARC and only for student use. And so just realize, if you start to bring in some of these other areas that may make not significant revenue, you're going to exclude your access to the facility. So one thing you just want to think about in proposing that.
Just to second what Dr. Olson was just talking about, and I think that's something that the students, to my understanding, when they voted upon creating the ARC, was the intention that it was a facility meant exclusively for the student body. And so if we invite camps or other individuals from like the community or campus, we might generate revenue, but that would result in eliminating the reason why we might have created the ARC in the first place, to be exclusively for students. And then I do have some further reservations about operating costs. I think that's something that obviously there was a problem with the ARC, and that's why we have this student fee proposal for an increase. And so sometimes our hands are tied, and we're going to have to front the money with student fees to cover things such as the bond and those mandated expenses. But all of these other things like operating costs and personal services, I think it's worthwhile to try to promote more efficiency and accountability with the ARC. But that might not, at the end of the day, result in a whole lot of difference when it comes to student fees. If you do some quick math, about $48,927 of the operating expenses is not like mandated expenses. And so that's maybe like $1 a student, maybe $1.25 that we could potentially remove, but that would be like if you removed all of those services. So essentially, I think kind of like some concerns about like efficiency of the ARC, I think those are valid concerns, but at the end of the day, they might not equate to a huge change in the actual like student fee costs of operating the ARC when you have things like the bond payments.
Yeah, I just wanted to add also with some of the concerns Director Arner and others have brought up. We do have a week between now and next Wednesday to kind of go and find out more of this. So I think it would be worthwhile to maybe further question some of, I guess, the expense waste that's occurring. So I encourage you guys to do that. But going back to the 99 cents and some of the other increases that others might be hesitant on, I don't think our goal should be subsistence just to make it above and float. I think we should look at the ARC beyond just the finances as what it means for students and how having a nice facility actually is attractive and encourages students to participate. So yes, the 99 cents is, at least in my conversations with Daniel, was under the assumption that these are things that will cover things under an emergency, like lights going out or air conditioning or something like that. And that's the cushion that we are giving them, so they don't come back and say, hey, this is happening. And with what Dr. Morales explained, with large ticket items, we don't have to worry about Daniel making that call on that. And also the other thing to keep in mind is the legacy field is also an important aspect of Aggie recreation, and if they keep cutting back into that, we also jeopardize the, I guess, well-being of that field itself and having a state-of-the-art facility. So the finances do sometimes seem scary, and there's a tendency to say, let's just look at the break-even point, but I think we should look at other intrinsic values beyond just the dollars and the cents. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in supporting the full increase.
One of the things that I'm in support of this fee increase. However, I would love to explore and sort of get some more light on the substitutions that may come into play, as in the field house, you know, and what kind of improvements that we're going to see, and if that's going to take some demand away from the ARC. As a business student, substitutions are one of the things that we learn about, and I would just like to explore maybe, you know, aside from this meeting, how when the renovations are done, what level of decrease in demand for the ARC that we'll see once the field house facilities are back up and running.
I'm going to make a motion to exhaust the speakers list. Sammy seconded.
All in favor of exhausting the speaker list, say aye. Aye. Any in opposition? Okay. All right.
Rachel's our last one. Sorry, she was already on the speakers list.
That's fine. That's great.
I know I've talked a lot in this meeting. I just feel kind of passionate about the ARC, I think, because, in Campus Rec in general, because I have spent so much time there. So when I say I'm hesitant, I'm not hesitant about improving a budget for student use, and I want to make that clear, because I think that improving the Aggie Legacy Fields is a great idea. I think that making sure that our facilities are functioning great is a great idea. I guess I'm just hesitant in terms of, I think there are a lot of things that weren't mentioned in this meeting. There was no mention of, like, we mentioned guest passes, but, like, for example, as of right now, faculty is allowed to use the ARC, but they have to pay a $100 fee per semester or $300 for the entire year. And I'm not saying that's a ton of money that's coming in, but I think it is worthwhile to question, okay, where's that money going? And certain little things like that. I also think it's very important to recognize that when talking about cutting budgets, the first thing to go was the student staff. And to me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense, because the whole point of the facility is to benefit students. And so I think that's where my hesitation comes in, is making sure that that budget, when it gets approved, is going straight to the students and there's proof of that. And not that it's being used for some weird offsite, like, I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is I think it's important to recognize that there are a lot of things on this list that maybe I'm confused about. I don't quite know, you know, like travel, for example. I don't know what that means. So I think there are certain things that should be looked into before fully going forward with this. And that is my ending comment. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a great discussion. I would encourage you to continue to critically think about this topic and do research in the coming week. Come prepared to our next meeting, to our discussion there. As well, again, reach out to Daniel. I'm sure he'd be willing to meet with you or chat with you or answer an email as well. Again, we'll have this presentation for you to review. Brock was over the ARC fee administrative fee meeting, so I'm sure if you want to see any financial or some of the financial documents that were used there, contact Brock. Okay. As far as discussion on the technology fee decrease, we'll open the floor for that discussion. Can we just give a round of applause to Dexton? Getting your steps in. Thanks.
Austin Flitzen, Cass Senator. I'm in full support of the decrease. I think it's wise to reevaluate it later on if we end up needing to increase that fee.
I'd like to entertain a motion to, there's not even a speaker list. Okay, do we have any, we don't even have to motion here. Seeing that there are no other comments, we will move to taking a straw poll. So a little explanation of a straw poll. How we'll do this is I'll just ask if you would be in support of the fee, we'll go the ARC fee increase first, and then we will take a straw poll for the IT fee decrease after that. So I'll ask if you're in support. Just raise your hand. Dexton will do a count, raise it high, and then if you would be in opposition, or if you would choose to abstain, and then, or if you have a stipulated motion like Clark, if you wanted to say, you know, I would be in support of the fee excluding the 99 cent. Anyway, and as well with this, so Dr. Morales will then take this to this straw poll to the university's executive council, which is made up of the university president, the vice presidents, the deans, and legal counsel, and get their recommendations and input, and then speak to that in our next meeting. Okay, so beginning the straw poll, please raise your hand if you would be in support of the ARC fee increase. Please raise your hand if you would be in opposition to the ARC fee increase. Please raise your hand if you abstain. And if anybody wants to make a substitute proposal here either, so. Okay, seeing none.
I don't know if this is a proposal, but like if we could get like a revenue report as well from the ARC, I think that would clear a lot of mud as well on what's going on and where the money's going. So.
Thanks. So just a total count of the straw poll, there were 15 in support, 0 nays, and 6 abstentions. Moving on to our poll of the IT fee decrease. Please raise your hand if you would be in support of this decrease. Looks unanimous. Please raise your hand if you would be in opposition to this decrease, or if you would choose to abstain. Okay, it's unanimous. All right. In conclusion of the meeting, we'll talk about the audit. That next week. Okay. James, do you have anything you would like to add? Or okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. So moved from Olivia, seconded from Brock. All in favor of adjourning our meeting, say aye. Aye. Any nays? All right, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.